Good afternoon, everybody. This is the 10-year, 10-minute live interview with a personality from the private equity world and beyond in Luxembourg and beyond. Very, very pleased today to start the week with the second edition of this series with Norbert Becker. Bonjour, Norbert. Welcome back.
Thank you, Raja. Thank you for having me.
Last time you were such a success and a hit for the audience, and what you said was so intriguing that we thought it's a good idea to bring you back 2 months down the line. So we were hoping and thinking that the dust would have settled by now. Is it really, is the question we all ask ourselves, because we interviewed you on the 31st of March. I should introduce you again, but I think the audience and our viewers should have taken the pain to listen to the first edition, because this is not a repeat, this is a follow-up. But just in case, for those who didn't have the time to do so, you are Luxembourg's most influential business person, as per the paper Jam 100. You sit and chair several boards of multinationals, including PayPal, among others. You're an entrepreneur, an investor who runs his own family office. So all these hats are brought together today to have you with us, at least with me first for 10 minutes, and then with the audience who can ask you any question or any question you'd like to answer. And so Norbert, thank you for being here. Anything I forgot about you? I'm sure I did, but...
No, you have been very gracious to describe me, and I'm a very modest person. So when I hear all this, I sometimes have to treat myself, asking if that is really me that you are talking about.
It is, I can confirm it's really you, Norbert Becker, so welcome. Last time you told us this scale was of such scale, this crisis was of such scale that nobody could predict its outcome. We're hoping that 2 months later, and good to see you in a great shape, you can tell us more about it. Has the dust settled at all? And to get your opinion about this, I'd like to ask you first, what have you advised the boards that you chair to do in terms of handling the current situation, be it in terms of cash, strategy, valuation, whatever you think is relevant for the audience?
Well, thank you, Raja. Well, first of all, I must tell you that in my view, the dust has not settled and will not settle until quite some time. We are really going into a paradigm shift. I don't believe personally that we will return to normality as we would define it, or as we have defined it prior to the crisis. This is a combination that is very unique and exceptional of multiple crises. One is the health crisis, then comes the economic crisis, and I'm very much afraid that there will be a financial crisis following when we see the damage that has been caused to the economy. At this point of time, it is really difficult. We only see the first quarter results of public companies and also private companies. The first quarter was generally okay, but I do believe that the second and the third quarters will be terribly difficult for some companies, some countries, some industries, some geographies. So to answer your question, there's no fit-all answer to that. It very much depends on if you are involved in an operating company with operating subsidiaries around the globe, or if you are in an investment company that has a portfolio of investments. I think the master word today is cash is king. And what we see everywhere is that companies, whatever their nature is, small or large, global, quoted, unquoted, they are all looking very closely to their liquidity, to their capacity to maintain their activities and certainly rebuild also after. So liquidity, treasury, working capital are really the things that are very, very critical. So,
but no, surely, after 2 months, they already have done something about it. They're not just looking at it, or do you see the result?
No, I mean, yes, of course, when I say looking at it, it means they have been looking at it, and in certain ways they have done stuff, provided additional credit lines or working capital and so on and so forth. So it depends very much on each situation. I think the other key the other key thing that I do is to be very close to my operating entities wherever they are around the globe. So my days are very long. I start early morning with Asia and finish late at night with the West Coast in the US. So it is critically important that the managers of your operations feel that you are concerned, that you listen to them, and that you can help or guide them in this situation. So from a strategic point of view, some industries will really be heavily impacted, and I think we will see massive unemployment coming in certain industries. And so the question is, will those companies be able to continue in a sustainable way without massive state help, government guarantees, and so on and so forth. And so not every investor really likes to have a state agency involved in their businesses, and so there will be very tough moments, very tough decisions that will have to be made in the next 6-9 months.
Have you made one already? Because we really want to know about you, not what the world will do in general. What have you taken in terms of decision?
No, so far I was not, thank God, touch wood, I was not involved in making any tough decisions in terms of closing or restructuring an operation. I'm very close to a few of them, which are in very difficult industries and sectors. But we are watching it on a daily basis. But thus far, no, there hasn't been any catastrophe around me, around myself.
So what you say resonates very much with an article I was sent by an investor friend where Soros was interviewed, and he says, to quote him, "We will not go back to where we were when the pandemic started. That is pretty certain. But that is the only one thing that is certain. Everything else is up for grabs. I do not think anybody knows how capitalism will evolve." So it could have been you writing this. But speaking of capitalism, last time you mentioned there was a very tough trade-off to be made between the sanitary and the economic priorities. Does it make sense today to choose between the two? I mean, if you were the president of the world, where would you put the cursor?
Well, obviously, health is critically important, and I don't understand all the issues that are related to the current health, and I don't think, by the way, anyone does. This virus is so complex and is in permanent mutation, so it's really, really difficult to predict anything. But what I'm personally convinced of is that indeed I share with Mr. Soros that capitalism, or the way the world economy is going to work after this will be very, very different. And I just give you one example, which is medical equipment and drugs. In Europe today, most of our medical equipment, or the parts to that medical equipment, as well as drugs, are no longer manufactured in Europe, but they are manufactured in China or India or elsewhere. And this is due to the fact that governments have pushed down the prices of drugs in such a way that the European manufacturers were unable to produce them. And therefore, they had to go to low-cost countries to do it, with the consequences that we have seen now in the crisis, that we had ruptures of stock almost everywhere. And the same is true for medical equipment. Added to that is the fact that the climate issue has pushed some governments also to be so demanding that some of the drug manufacturers can't produce anymore in Europe because they are polluting too much the air. Like 100% of
antibiotics, yes.
Thank you. Are produced in China today because in Europe nobody gets a license anymore to produce this. So all these things will have to change, and that will have consequences in the way. And this is just one industry and just one example.
So it's the end of globalization as we knew it.
As we knew it, I think, yes, I think there will be a new globalization. I think the way products will be manufactured, products and services, by the way, will be delivered, will become different. I think that the internet and all businesses that are around the internet will take an enormous advantage, and we see it already today. But that changes the world dramatically, and it will also create issues, because not everybody, depending on your age group, is capable of using the internet to get their stuff delivered to their front door. So we're going to see some social issues very importantly, at the same time as we see a lot of opportunities.
Okay, well, 10 minutes is never enough with you, and I still have a third question for you, so I hope I'm allowed to go overboard, exceptionally. You sound to me much more pessimistic or worried than 2 months ago, which is always something to take note of, given your long experience. But you do tell me always that it's in the worst crisis times that the best opportunities emerge. Are you ready to look at opportunities or not yet? If so, what would trigger them, and where do you see this coming from? Because we always want to inspire our audience while remaining realistic.
Yes, and thank you for that. That is a good transition to what I was going to say. I'm not sure that I am so pessimistic. Unfortunately, I think that I am realistic. Today, nobody can do an economic forecast. Doing economic forecast today would be like Galbraith, one of the famous economists, has said, would make astrology look a remarkable science.
Yeah.
It is impossible today to forecast anything. In my businesses, I have assigned a task in every company that I'm involved with, a task as the opportunity chaser. So I want somebody at a high level in management to wake up in the morning and think about what can be changed to take advantage of this. What can be changed so that we will survive? What can be changed so that we have a growth pattern before us? What can be changed that we can continue to employ our people? What can be changed so that we continue to invest? And so if you do not have anyone waking up every morning with that only idea in his head, not much will happen. And so I am looking at opportunities right now. They are in the technology space altogether. Obviously, medtech, biomedicine, all those are areas that will, in my opinion, will present many opportunities. And then, of course, all services and product delivery that you can do through internet, I think present the most of the opportunities that are tangible today. I think there will be others coming, but it's too early to predict.
Okay, so what's your best idea right now for you personally, if you can share it with us?
Well, my best idea is stay close to my companies, continue to help them, watch them, be with them, and by the same token, learn about opportunities and go for them. There will be opportunities, and it is a good time to seize them in a world, as you said before. Great opportunities always arise after a crisis. Now, this crisis, as I told you in the beginning, is so very different that the opportunities will be very different as well. And you need a lot of things that we don't know yet exactly what they are.
Well, to me, Norbert, there's a few questions waiting for us. We are in Luxembourg after all, and despite the fact that you had a very international career, what can we do at the Luxembourg level to help the recovery? And if you look at the forecast for 2020, we are one of the best faring countries with only, quote unquote, -5% in GDP decline. And I'm sure you're involved at many levels here to look at this recovery path.
Well, I think that up to now, the Luxembourg system, government, scientists, medical doctors have worked perfectly well together. And the way the crisis has been handled in Luxembourg is remarkable. Now comes the question of how do we get the economy launched again, and that becomes critically important because otherwise some of the precautionary measures that we have taken will be disproportionate relative to the health risk that we encounter. If you look at Luxembourg today, we have 103 deaths, if my numbers are correct, early this morning. If you look at the average age, would be around 85. If you look at who those unfortunately casualties were, by far the biggest majority were people that suffered from other pathologies, diabetes, cardio, whatever. So to protect, if you like, 20% of the population in this country are over 60 years, to protect those 20%, we must not continue to lock down the 80 other percent. Otherwise, our economy and every economy in the world will get to such a level that it's going to be very hard, if not impossible, to recover.
You didn't change your mind. That's what you said last time, actually, exactly the same. So, but we are opening up as we speak, no?
Yes, we are opening up. I think a bit too slow in my taste, like restaurants and bars and so on and so forth. If we keep those closed, it has an economic price, but it has also a health price. People are not made, human beings are not made to be alone, confined in apartments. They are made to live in society, to meet, have social interaction, and so on and so forth. And we will only see after a year or so what the health collateral damages will be if the confinement is too long. So I really encourage us to move as fast as we can by taking all precautionary measures, obviously, and helping people. Now, on the GDP, you mentioned -5%, Raja. That is one scenario. There's another scenario that talks about -12%. And it all depends, as you know very well, Luxembourg is a totally open economy. The success of Luxembourg depends very much on what is happening around. Financial services depends on what world markets will do in equities and bonds. because the net asset values of the funds will be impacted, and then you derive all the fees, commissions, services, charges, and so on and so forth, which are based on those. And it depends really on how that will develop to determine how the GDP at the end.
Sure. And speaking of which, Norbert, one question is, are you optimistic for private equity funds and their performance going forward, or pessimistic?
No, you know, the investment funds, per definition, have a portfolio of investments. And if the portfolios are well diversified, and if they are not dedicated to one particular industry that is in great difficulties, I think you will have good news and you will have less good news. But bottom line, it probably will be okay. Now, again, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. On my own portfolio, I'm prepared to make adjustments during this year of up to 20%. But that's not the end of the world, because
and it's the beauty of long term. Private equity is about long term.
Exactly. That's why I am in. I mean, to tell you a secret, that is why I am in private equity and not in public equity. I own not one share of a public company.
Well, I was going to ask you this. This is a big scoop for our audience, because obviously there seems to be a big disconnect between the performance of the stock market that's recovered largely from March, led by technology stocks, and the real economy. So you're not tempted to buy any of these sexy companies that are tech focused?
No, I mean, I would buy, but not now. And I think it's too early. If I invest through private equity, because then I'm close to the operation, I see, and I can bring in my experience and so on and so forth.
Influence.
And yes, influence, and I'm part of the value creation. If I buy public stock, you are nothing, you are miles away. And so, now, I'm not discouraging anyone, so my role is not to be
you can discourage. Maybe you are.
I'm not an investment advisor, so I don't discourage. You ask me what I'm doing, I'm telling you what I'm doing.
No, but the 10-minute format doesn't work with you, because I have 3 more questions. Are you okay to answer them, or you prefer to stop here?
No, I'm ready to stay. And I think the 10-minute format is a difficult one on these subjects.
Well, in 10 years, we can do 20 minutes because it's supposed to match our existence. But
you change your marketing line.
But I think we will do a special format for people such as yourselves, because you're very inspiring. One question from a tech entrepreneur is, Twitter has recommended or authorized their staff to work from home until the end of the year. You probably saw this big news. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that is exactly what I'm doing as well in my businesses. For those who can, I told them all to stay home. Dependent on the companies, I said I would like, as a rule of thumb, that everyone spends 1 day a week in the office, just not to lose the social interaction with people. So to take advantage of the coffee break in the canteen and walk the halls and see people with all the distancing and so on and so forth. But generally, I do believe that if something remains from this crisis, it is home working. Now that will, if you think this through, this will have, there will be many opportunities because you want to make sure that your systems are very well protected. If mommy is working in the kitchen on her computer and comes lunchtime and then she prepares lunch, leaves her computer on.
Mommy or papa, Norbert, sorry.
Mommy or papi, yeah, that doesn't matter. And leave their computer on and the kids start playing around, and all of a sudden they find themselves in the core system of the company, that would not be a good idea. And so I think that home working will definitely continue, and the opportunities will be that around that additional systems, protections, what have you, will have to be created. And the other impact that it will have is probably less office space, the redesign of office space. I have asked for all my open floor plateaus to be redesigned so that people don't face each other anymore. So we will put them into losanges, if that's an English word.
Staggered order, yeah. But at LPEA we bought a kind of transparent separators, because we don't have the luxury of such a big office. But yes, the staggered seating is a powerful one. Okay, there's 3 more questions. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, one is maybe too personal, but one is asking, can you please share a personal anecdote that can be a little bit spicy for the audience? You don't have to answer that, but...
Well, I have done nothing but working during these days, and if there was anything spicy, I wouldn't share it with you.
Thank you. That's an answer. 2 more. So I know we spoke about Luxembourg already, but someone wants to know, is if a country, Luxembourg, can really take advantage, which is not a nice word, but let's say leverage on the crisis to make something that looks more like an opportunity, a specific idea?
Well, at this point of time, I don't have my crystal ball with me, and at this point of time, I don't see anything big. I don't see any big idea that would emerge specifically for Luxembourg, where Luxembourg could have a waterfall gain or profit or whatever. I think Luxembourg today has to make absolutely certain that its businesses continue to be sustainable. I think that many things, the attitude of other states around us will change. All their cash drawers are empty, and so will that have an impact on the tolerance?
I don't know. I was hoping you would say something for our restaurants and bars and cafes, because I know you're a regular customer for all the good places.
It is true that I am a gastronome and I like very much good wine, but no, I don't have any great idea that would make a lot of money. I mean, the sooner they can open, obviously, the better it will be.
So the final question, Norbert, I think we broke all the records of not only attendance, but duration. And I see 95% of the audience is still watching us, but you are an inspiration for many people in Luxembourg, young people also in particular, and they'd like to know, what do you advise them to do if they are right now trying to boost their career or relaunch their career? It's not that easy. How should they behave and think and act if you're there to mentor them?
Well, I think everyone needs to understand himself and understand what he or she wants to do with their lives. Are there any particular sectors you are more interested in than others? Once you have answered that question, then I think you need to develop a passion for it, and you have to make yourself the best in what you want to achieve. So you have to be constantly curious, you have to read a lot, you have to engage a lot, you have to interact with many people, and from there opportunities will be available to you. I haven't met any young person between 20 or 30 in Luxembourg over the past years. In fact, all my professional life that I lived in Luxembourg, that if they wanted to find a great job, they didn't. I have not met any person
Wow.
like that.
I think, Norbert, we should have you, you know, the private equity for women group that we have, which is also open to men. Maybe we do a little Q&A workshop with you in the next week so that everyone can ask you their own questions. Oh, that's great. I'll take your word on this, but I want to let you go. But there is another question, which is, I know, a topic that we've discussed in the recent past and related to what Mrs. von der Leyen is trying to do for Europe in the context of the German court having challenged the ECB program. And I know this is something that's close to your heart. I don't know if you feel like commenting on it. I just literally received this question now. It's a tough one.
Well, I have read the arguments of the Constitutional Court in Germany. I think what they are questioning is the process. It is not the substance. And so this will have an impact on the process of how the ECB will make their decisions. But it definitely doesn't put into jeopardy the economic and fiscal policy that the ECB is pursuing. So it comes at the wrong time. I'm very much surprised. This court was sitting on this case for years, and they found no better place in their calendar to rule at this very moment. So that is a bit strange, and that raises the question in my mind, if this was a political driven decision. I hope not, I don't think, but if you look at the timing and the nature of the thing, I think if you are realistic as I am, I think you are entitled to raise your eyebrows.
Okay, so is what Mrs. von der Leyen is doing something that you admire or agree with, or?
Well, she is in her job since not even 6 months, and then she was hit by this. Obviously, I think she does thus far a good job in looking at the economy. I think that Europe overall has done a very poor job in terms of managing the health crisis, closing the borders, killing Europe. Not sure that that was a good idea. Now, that was not the Commission who decided that; those were the countries. So the countries themselves shoot themselves in the foot, and actually on some borders you see the European flags on half-mast, and so
that's a sad one.
It's a sad one, and you know, the ECB I think is really the one institution, and the European Investment Bank for that matter, that we have to look at from a macroeconomic point of view. Of course, everybody will ask the question, who's going to repay all that debt, all that debt that is being now generated through the countries, all that liquidity that is pumped into the markets. The counterparty of that is debt. And is that a perpetual debt? Is that the debt that will be wiped out? How is that going to work? And today, nobody has the answer to that.
Mm-hmm. Norbert, it's been an honor to have you. If maybe you have a word of le mot de la fin to share with us before we let you go, but it will be possible to replay your interview, and we will also collect the best of all these webinars that we had, and we hope you can send us a short summary of the key takeout you want us to keep from it. But feel free to add the word of the end, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Raja. Well, I think that in Luxembourg, if I look at Luxembourg, we have managed the crisis very well. I think that if one country can get out of this in a much better way than many others, it is Luxembourg. Therefore, I am very confident that Luxembourg will definitely make the right decisions, continue to protect the businesses that are here, the entire sectors. I am very confident that we will be attacked by our neighboring countries for some of our successes, and there we all need to have a sense of solidarity and being helpful at whatever level we are, to protect that. But I am relatively optimistic to the longer outcome. Don't ask me about the 6 months or the 9 months coming. Don't ask me about the year end. I think this year will be a thrown away year in many regards. But in the long term, I think if anyone can get out of this better than the others, it's Luxembourg.
Great, thank you, Norbert. We're doing everything in this respect at the LPEA, and of course the whole financial marketplace with LPEA, CSSF, everybody. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you, Raja, for having me. Thank you.
Take care.